situation on the border is the most difficult, but also there is Romania, with which we are expecting 2 new border crossing points in the nearest time, and this will also unload this direction of export. I truly hope that on October 4th there will be a new border crossing point with Poland launched. So a lot is being done with different services, both by they and by us. It's just the phytosanitary service that's a bit lagging behind, but otherwise we can answer your questions. Viacheslav, my question to you. We are speaking of grain, which is in focus of the world's attention because of the importance of its supplies. So there is information, there are complaints that the checks on the Polish side are very difficult. So are there any measures taken with our Polish and other colleagues to somehow optimize the system for getting the permits, for instance? Thank you for your question. Currently, yes, we are in contact with our Polish colleagues all the time. We are discussing different issues of expediting the process of crossing the border. We are also thinking of establishing several crossing points for the vehicles without load. Thus, we will hope this will reduce the waiting lines. As for the phytosanitary service, we are also discussing this issue, and this is being discussed with the Polish counterparts. One of the issues is the low pay in that service, which is about 1,000 zloty per month, a very small pay for Poland. So, and we are offering the help for expediting these services, and through negotiations we hope this issue will be solved. Serhii, can you share about the citizens crossing the border? For now, the several hours waiting in the line is a reality, and how are you working with expediting the supplies of the cargoes? Hello, dear colleagues. I'd like to support the statement of the Minister of Infrastructure and also the acting head of the Customs Service. Indeed, the issue of waiting lines on the border is constantly under our control. There are requests from the President and other high officials about the waiting lines. Also, we hear the same question from the head of the President's office. Please believe that in the current conditions we have in our country since the beginning of this full-scale invasion of the armed forces of the Russian Federation, a lot has been done. But we had to close a number of seaports, and because of that, of course, there is a higher load on the western borders. The most critical situation we are having right now is on the Polish border. We noted that the waiting lines of the freight vehicles usually were visible in the end of the week, starting from Thursday, but they dropped almost to zero on Tuesdays. Right now we have such waiting lines daily, and depending on which crossing point it is, there can be from 300 to 800 of vehicles, and in Yagodin we have 2,670 vehicles. So yes, these are only trucks, and in order to increase the capacity of Yagodin, we made a joint decision with Poland, and the Ministry of Infrastructure started an experiment. We closed the possibility of personal vehicles crossing the border in Yagodin. We hoped that would help the trucks to cross faster. You all probably remember what was happening a month or two ago when our country was facing a fuel crisis, and there was a need to enable very fast crossing for the fuel vehicles, and in close cooperation with our international partners, we enabled fast crossing of such vehicles. Right now, we can see fuel in every gas station, so we have dealt with the challenge successfully. Right now, the challenge we are having is Yagodin, and currently we are noticing that both the Polish carriers have contacted the Polish government with a request to increase the number of employees in phytosanitary service. So, just for your understanding, in Dorohusk we have only 3 persons working, and they are dealing with processing the cargoes for the trucks and for the railway as well. So it's a huge workload. As Viacheslav has mentioned, the pay they are getting is very low, and we hope that Poland will take the proper decision and increase the number of these employees considerably. So what we have done here, most probably every day we are in contact with Mustafa and Viacheslav. We exchange the statistics every day about the waiting lines, about the trucks crossing the border. We wish each other good morning, and during the day we communicate as well. We also communicate with our partners, specifically with Polish partners. In July, we proposed the initiative of opening new border crossing points, and at the head of the state border guard service and the state customs service, we are able to propose such things. Unfortunately, this initiative was not supported, and only yesterday I got this response from the Polish officials concerning the empty trucks being able to cross at the Ustyluch crossing point. This will enable unloading Yagodin a bit. We are offering to other places in Lviv region. We have once again submitted a letter to Poland with these proposals as well, and we hope they will be supported. As for the personal cars, right now the lines are not critical. The lines can be up to 40 or 50 vehicles, sometimes up to 100, but that's a working process. There are military crossing the border for training. There is a number of such programs. There is a need for them to cross the border faster. So there is no critical situation with personal vehicles, and the greatest challenge right now is happening concerning the trucks. And the main thing we want to accomplish is to solve this situation when the drivers have to wait from 3 to 7 days on the border, because this entails additional costs for the carriers. So let us hear from Mustafa. What are the numbers about the increase of the load, and what are the most critical gaps? So let me be brief and first mention about Yagodin. Yagodin is 40% of our exports, so the majority of what we are able to export goes through Yagodin, and we are monitoring these places sometimes minute by minute, and you can see this in the slide. It takes 22 minutes to enter Ukraine, so it takes 7 minutes for the border guard control and 15 minutes for customs control. And when the vehicle is leaving Ukraine, it takes approximately the same time in Ukraine, maybe up to 20 minutes per service. But then they are waiting for 4 to 5 hours for the Polish controls, including phytosanitary control and customs control. And everyone is waiting there, and hence the nightmare in Yagodin. Over the last 3 days, the Ministry of Agriculture and Infrastructure, and of course the Border Guard Service and Customs Service, have contacted our colleagues jointly. So our proposal is about the 8 border crossing points. The letter has already been sent to the Polish Ministry of Finance, Infrastructure, and everyone involved. So the idea is about sorting the cargoes into groups of goods, and this will simplify the task for the Polish colleagues in the phytosanitary service. So this was the proposal from the Ministry of Agriculture and also the Polish Ministry of Agriculture as well. So also we propose not to do phytosanitary control for certain types of goods, and for instance for turnips, which make a huge percentage of the exports, and so we are considering this possibility, and we hope this will happen in the nearest days. Also, together with our colleagues, as Mr. Deineko has mentioned, we need to take measures to launch new border crossing points. We have the proposal about 1 temporary location for empty trucks in Nizhenkovichi Malkovice. We already discussed this with Mr. Michal Dvorchik, so right now the computations are being done on our part, and Poles are ready to launch this crossing point. Another suggestion is Variash Usmish, and we hope we are starting to plan these processes very soon. And also for 5 border crossing points, 1 of which has been proposed by Poland and 4 of which were proposed by us, we are ready to also enable crossing for the empty trucks. This should greatly simplify the situation on other border crossing points, and we also want this transport not to be counted as loaded trucks. Unfortunately, quite often Poles count the empty trucks as loaded ones, thus using up all the limits. But here there is no expert if an empty truck is crossing the border, and we hope they will not be counted. Also, we were discussing the idea of increasing the number of the employees of the Polish phytosanitary service. And actually, the Polish carriers have also supported these same proposals that we have. Unfortunately, there is no dialogue with them right now. It's not correct for us to intrude into that conversation, but it would be correct for Poles to have this conversation openly. In the nearest 2 or 3 days, they are planning to block 2 or 3 additional border crossing points. Right now in Yagodin, we are seeing a huge drops of vehicles crossing Yagodin, and we are losing millions of dollars daily. We understand the situation, but our carriers and our producers should have some chance to get at least some benefit from the situation. Right now, all the pressure is on our side, and I believe it's not correct. Also, we are in constant conversation with our colleagues in the Ministry of Infrastructure about the border crossing point, and we hope that tomorrow, when the Polish Prime Minister is going to visit Ukraine, I also know that this will be one of the issues for discussion. So, thank you. Let us hear some questions from the audience, from the journalists. So, I have a follow-up question. What is your assessment of the potential losses of Ukrainian exporters because of the situation? As of now, there are losses of between 55 and 60 million hryvnias in Yagodin only. But generally, since the beginning of the complication of the situation, what can be the general amount? You mean since the beginning of the strike? Well, 55 to 60 millions hryvnias daily. And one more general question. If we are having a positive scenario, how long it will take for the situation to be settled? We truly hope for this visit of the Polish Prime Minister to change anything. It's going to happen tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Also, they have established the crisis headquarters, and we have established headquarters as well. I hope that the decision is going to be made soon, and the decision will be supported at the level of the prime ministers about, let's say, increasing the salaries, hiring additional people. In any case, we'll need several weeks for this line to be somehow settled. I'll give you 2 numbers. We are having statistics. Each morning at 7:30, I get the hourly analysis of the trucks processed at every border crossing points, and I can immediately see which of the crossing points were effective and which were not. So let's consider the night September 4, September 5. In Yagodin, Ukrainians have processed 2,066 trucks entering from Poland. At the same time, Poles were able to process 619 vehicles. So we were 3 times more effective. We are ready to work systematically. We are working to the full capacity of the Polish counterparts, but it's very difficult to work in such conditions. We pretty much don't want to blame Poles, because Poland is doing a lot for us, and we are getting huge support from this country, and there is Rzeszów, which is called the savior city for us. So I truly hope that after the visit of the Polish Prime Minister, this problem will be settled. And what is the extent of this drop or the change in the load? So there was one amount of vehicles crossing before February 24, another amount since then, and the statistics after the drop. Currently, about 80% of experts which were going through the ports were redirected to the western border of Ukraine. So the problem is that the trucks have brought more of the currency to the country because of the unavailability of ports for a long time. So in this time, the road transport has helped the economy a lot. And right now, all of these carriers are in a very difficult condition because it costs between 300 and 400 euros per vehicle for one waiting day at the border. Sometimes just 1 hour of standing in line is more expensive than they are earning on this. And also many carriers are buying additional vehicles because they do not have enough to stand in lines. Meanwhile, the Polish carriers are working much faster while our drivers are waiting. Thus, there are conflicts in the line. You know that it's very difficult to explain to people waiting there that when a Polish carrier has quickly crossed the border, came into the country and wants to leave quickly, we are, of course, protecting the interest of the Ukrainian carriers, but we are also ready to let the Polish empty trucks out quickly. But otherwise, if we do not deal with the issue quickly, it will be very difficult to explain this to our drivers. Question to Minister Kubrakov: how the war has influenced the development of infrastructure, and specifically the situation on Yagodin. There were some funds available for the improvements of the infrastructure. Is there any decrease of these funds, or maybe increase to increase the number of lines at the border crossing points? Since the beginning of this war, all the capital expenses were limited considerably, but for the border crossing points, there were projects for a border crossing point in Romania. There was the preparation for the Euro Cup, and the works are almost over. And also the Krakowicz border crossing point, again we were doing some works, and actually we were assisted by our Polish colleagues, for instance the Polish Agency of Strategic Reserve that has provided those temporary houses for the work of the border crossing point. There is some planning for the development of border crossing points. We have some plans to considerably increase the capacity of Yagodin. We have made all the possible small improvements already, and we have also heard about redirecting the passenger vehicles. Okay, so one more question. If people are waiting in a 50 kilometers long waiting line and people do not even have toilets for their physiological needs, are you working on this in any way? First, no one was expecting such 50 kilometers waiting lines. Indeed, there are no toilets available, no water at times. Also, the temperatures are going down, so it will be cold. The issue can be partially resolved by the digital waiting lines. We discussed this. The waiting line will be implemented through the Ministry of Infrastructure, and what it will enable to do is at least not to wait along the border. It will be available since October. It will be free. You know, no one will be earning additional money on this, but this will be at least some temporary solution. For the long-term run, there should be service zones introduced. There is a territory provided to the customs service. It was initially planned as a service zone, but because of the limited expenses now, we are not moving forward on this. Hopefully, we will find some money, and the electronic waiting lines will hopefully solve the issue, at least partially. I'm Lilia Honcharuk from Suspilne. So we were discussing the electronic waiting lines. We hear from Zakarpattia, where the pilot is happening, that there are still waiting lines of several kilometers. And also another question is about the broken bridges in Sumy region. So the electronic waiting line that has been launched in a CHOP, that's not exactly the electronic waiting line we were waiting for. So that's only the waiting line for the terminal. And it's not really integrated with the customs and border guard service. It is indeed temporary. But if it's a project that's implemented by the state enterprise managed by the Ministry of Infrastructure. We also agreed with them that this project will be integrated with the electronic waiting line. So we can do any solution, but it's them who are actually letting the vehicles out. We have very close collaboration. It's the first time we were able to actually move forward so far. There were some attempts to earn money on the carriers, but we are making sure that this will not be happening. It will be free for the carriers. I hope it will be working very smoothly. It will be a mobile application, and hopefully between September and October you will see some result already. Speaking of Sumy region, we have launched one of the bridges there, the connection with the northern part of the region. All the other bridges are at different stages of the process. Wherever it's possible to do this fast, we are doing this. Also, we are working with the European Investment Bank, and the Minister of Finance signed all the necessary documents last week, and we have also taken all the obligations on the September 7th, so hopefully with the European Investment Bank it will be easier. Otherwise, all the bridges on the large highways, they are either being built or being designed.
My question is about the green export initiative. So how do you evaluate the result of this green export initiative after 1 month, more than 1 month operation? And also, what's your expectations after, more than 1 month? Is there any new port will be added in this deal? And also, what's the capacity now? And what's your expectation after this 120 days of this deal? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. First of all, if you're talking about results of the first month, our estimation that they were higher than we expected. For now, it's about 2.5 million tons already exported from 3 ports of Lach Odessa, Chernomorsk, Pivdenne, and Odessa. So we expect, in case if situation will continue just similar like we have in August, I'm talking about security question first of all. We expect that we will have more than 3 million tons of export of agricultural products. Again, we're talking about 3 ports of Lach Odessa. The key question is security question for now. Our key markets, key destinations, first of all, it's Asia, then Europe, and then Africa. 30% of our export is European destination, but if we're talking about Africa, we have Egypt, we have almost 10 countries which already received our agricultural products. But the key markets, it's Asia for sure. Regarding additional ports, for sure we are ready. We raised this question from the very beginning. Mykolaiv, it's one of the key ports if you're talking about export of agricultural products. I hope that we will succeed here, but it's on the side of our partners in this initiative, first of all, United Nations and Turkey. Thank you.
Ще є питання?
Other questions?
How do you expect that after this 120 days of this, deal? What's your expectation? 120 days, because this initiative is signed, I think there's in 120 days.
No, it could be prolonged in case if any side won't decide to stop it. So I wouldn't comment what will happen in 120 days. I can say that as a result of September, we expect 3 million tons of export. I wouldn't comment whole 120 days. I don't it's, let's try to make forecast what we feel, what we expect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ще питання є?
Other questions? Thank you so much for the information provided. Wish you success in this difficult business. So this was Media Center Ukraine Forum.